Hey, good morning, Ed. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Dan?
Good. Well, of course, we'll follow this company list here for, going through this, trying to capture some of the history of MWI over the last 100 years, hopefully over the last 40 or so, with those that are here. So why don't you state your name and your background?
I'm Ed Saurazas, and I'm originally from Canada. I graduated college in engineering technology, electrical engineering technology, and at which point I was hired by Westinghouse in Toronto. I worked for Westinghouse for about 4 years, and the thing with working with the big companies, your responsibilities are very narrow. So what I was doing at Westinghouse all day, every day, I do design control schematics and do builds. And I did that for about 4 years, and I didn't realize how good I got at control schematics until I got out of Westinghouse and realized, man, I'm pretty good at that. But I had the opportunity to move to Florida because my parents were divorced, and my dad lived in Florida and my mother lived in Canada. And at some point, I had to weigh out, do I want to stay in Canada or do I want to move to Florida? Well, that was a pretty easy decision. Yes. So I came down here and I looked for a job, and just so happened MWI is looking for a control guy, and that was my destiny. And I've been here for 39 years, and I'm going on 40 years this year.
Yeah, pretty impressive achievement. I remember a lot of the controls that we were doing back then when you came on board. I was just a kid still back then. But we were doing a lot of those big South Florida water management projects that had really, really sophisticated control systems on it. And we were doing all those panels. They'd come in here and you had to wire them all up and doing all the schematics for it. And I believe South Florida ended up using a lot of our work that we had done on those original specifications and designs for a lot of their future stations.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what kept me here all these years was the variety of the job. I mean, the thing is, as I'm saying, I came from a spot at Westinghouse where you have very narrow responsibilities. Here, I mean, I did startups. I mean, I managed the product. I did submittals. I mean, it was just, I guess the variety of work kept it fresh. A lot of, not too much travel, just enough travel to keep it interesting. And then a lot of exotic places like Malaysia and, Beijing and, just a lot of places around the world where we've been doing business.
Yeah, you've definitely traveled quite a bit to some exotic locations. So not on everybody's vacation list, but some of them are in the holiday. Some of them are ones I'm not sure if I'd go back there. But,
exactly.
Yeah, but we've met a lot of neat people. Yeah.
Exactly, but it's an experience. Yeah. Right.
I know one of our main product lines nowadays is our submersible electric propeller pumps, and you had a lot to do with the whole design of us bringing our motor designs in-house. Tell me a little bit about that.
So when we first started, we wanted to get in the submersible electric business. So what we started doing is using an existing pump bowl, and we went out and bought submersible motors and coupled them to the bowls. But the price of the submersible motors were astronomical. We could not compete in the industry if we had to buy the motors. So the decision made is we have to make the motors here. Your father, he said, we're going to make the motors out of stainless steel rather than cast iron like the competition. And to this day, I mean, we have still submersible pumps operating that we built in the early 90s, which these are submersible motors is unheard of. I mean, for pumps to operate that long in that condition. So it was actually your father that made the decision we're going to do the stainless.
Yeah, provide a superior product to the existing marketplace.
We had to get in the market. We had to distinguish ourselves.
Now of course we got a lot of customers that spec them all out with not just the motor housing being stainless, but the entire pump, since we were able to produce it so efficiently.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So going on, says how would you describe the culture at MWI Pumps?
There's no fear. Now, when it comes to bidding projects, we have no fear.
Right.
I mean, whether the Army Corps projects, and in fact, I've always said, if there's a project, the bigger of a contraption it is, where we need more fabricated steelworks or whatever, the more competitive we are at it. So the way I see it, the more complicated or dealing with the Army Corps or difficult consultants, that's what we're best at. because we have the strong engineering department, and typically we do well in those jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, we like the challenge, and when it has a lot of specialty stuff or out of the box thinking, we really excel on that.
And that's what the competition gets afraid of it, and they jack up the price, and that's why we're always doing Army Corps jobs.
Yeah, we create a lot of unique niche products, like the Submersible Electric that slides down the can for a lot of those reservoirs where they can't really build a station out in it because the elevations are so great, and we put it on those rails and it just slides into the can.
Right. Or horizontal, low profile horizontal pumps that don't even have a can. I know we did one with a can where they wanted the check valve or the lid of the can to be a check valve.
Right.
So it would slide up the conduit pipe. We put a bit substantial conduit pipe in the middle and would slide back down as the pump shut off, and you had a check valve.
Yeah. Yep. Dad used to call those Chinese hats because it looked like those Chinese hats. Yeah. And we do those for the line shaft pump. So a lot of the complementary technology from the ag market, migrates over to the municipal.
Right.
So good. Going on, significant projects and achievements. Are there anything that you particularly proud about during your time with MWI Pumps?
Well, I talked about, we already talked about the Submersible Electros, but another thing that I've seen over the years is these construction project pumps, like the Prime Right and the Rate of Flow, whatever. Those things have substantially gone better over the years. I mean, the ones we make today, I would put up against any pump on the planet. I mean, you got galvanized. In fact, we're looking at some of the galvanized trailers, galvanized tanks. I mean, you got a John Deere engine, which is a great engine. The control panel. I mean, we've gone to a lot of different manufacturers and control panels until we found one that's super reliable. It controls ink panels reliable. The pump's cast, beautiful casting. And if you want a soundproof enclosure on it, I mean, the enclosures the paint jobs on them are automotive grade with decals. I mean, as I said, I put that pump up against anybody on the planet. I don't think anyone can build a better pump than that.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on, getting out there. Right now we just have to figure out how we can produce them at larger scale and higher volumes, which is a new challenge the company's going through, but I know we're going to be able to meet it. Some of our competition can do as many as 5,000 a year. And
wow.
I'm not sure, when we'll reach that level, but I definitely know there's a huge market for a good quality product that we're putting out there. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting to see all that. It doesn't happen overnight. It's been years of gradual improvement.
And years, exactly.
I guess that's part of our corporate culture too. Sometimes we're not ever satisfied with status quo. We're always looking for ways to improve it.
Right. Yeah.
So, company's impact and contributions. How do you think MWI Pumps has contributed to any flood protection, drainage, irrigation, or any examples?
Well, most of South Florida drainage, I'm going to say the majority of South Florida drainage pumps are MWI. I mean, you see them everywhere. I've been doing startups for 40 years. I've been pretty well. Every county, every city in Florida has got at least some of our pumps. The other thing, one of the big impacts that I've seen is with the big flood in New Orleans. That our rental division really mobilized and got a lot of pumps down there. And then we had the emergency pump station where we built a lot of pumps quick that they could use as a substitution until they got the permanent pump stations back working. So I think that was a big impact to New Orleans.
Yeah, that was a fun project. We built all those in a short period of time.
Right, all of us did a lot of trips down there.
Oh, yeah. My brother, I think, lived there for a month or something in a hotel. So, yeah. So,
I can't believe how deep the water was there. I was there, and a guy was standing beside these fuel storage tanks, and he said, I was here in the flood. And he said, see that line in the tank? 18 feet up in the tank. I'm looking up there. He said the water was at that line. It was that deep in there. It's kind of unbelievable how deep the water got. But, I asked, what'd you do? He said, I swam to the top of the tank and I waited out the storm up there.
Yeah. So, and still today, we have a lot of customers whose pump stations have been damaged with hurricanes and their flood protection is going to be down for an extended period of time. In fact, we're doing one for South Florida water management right now where some old gears are having to be replaced. And, we're able to go in and bypass what to most people is a huge pump station. But, we've got we're probably we're semi-permanent rentals on over 1.5 million gallons a minute around the world right now on pump stations that are down for repair at any one time. So it's kind of cool to do. So I guess one of the things that makes us a little different than your average pump company, because we can, you pump somebody with a 500,000 gallon per minute station doesn't know that we can come in and turn them on in a day or two while their permanent pumps have to be fixed.
Right.
Yeah. Any cultural traditions or stories or fun or funny things that you can think of or that you remember over the years that really stick with you?
Well, I've got a funny startup story.
Okay.
I mean, this is many years ago when Jim and I were both traveled to down south somewhere to a pump station that had wide shaft pumps, big Kiesel engines, drive shafts, gearhead. And we fill up in a rental car and we get out of the car and they got a podium set up in front of the pump house and they're putting up all these chairs in front of the podium. And we asked the contractor, what's going on? So, well, the mayor's going to be here at 10 o'clock. He's going to do a speech. He's going to cut a ribbon. And then you guys are going to start up and run all the pumps. We go, okay, cool. And then we go in the pump station where, the pumps had never been started before.
Right.
Try to start the first pump. It's locked up. Nothing, just click. And in the end, we found out it wasn't really our fault that the non-reverse ratchet in the ear was backwards. So we tried a second pump. Nothing, locked up pump. And we go to the third pump. The third pump works. We was on one pump, so it was just working. So we spent a considerable amount of time trying to figure out why these pumps were locked up. And then we look outside of the pump station. The 3 local news affiliate crews have showed up, and they're setting up their cameras in front of the at the back of RCS. And all these people are beginning to file in, and the contractors, the mayor's on his way, the mayor's on his way. And me and Jim are going, what are we going to do? Yeah. And we're thinking, well, the pumps discharge underneath the pump station, and nobody can see the discharge of the pumps from where all they're sitting. So I said, well, let's start the good pump first.
Right.
And then we'll disconnect the PTOs on the other 2, and we'll just start the engines.
Right.
And water come out of the pump station, and hopefully just sitting outside, they won't notice the drive shafts are spinning. So sure enough, the mayor does his speech, they cut the ribbon, and the contractor knows what's going on, so he's just sweating bullets. He says, start the pump. So we start the first pump, idles, it revs up the speed, and water comes rolling out from underneath the pump station. We start the second pump, or we start the second engine. Yes, it revs up the speed. The third engine revs up the speed. All the engines are screaming, and water's coming out of the pump station. And we wind everything down and shut it off. And guess what? We pulled it off.
I'm sure that mayor and that contractor.
We pulled that one off, yeah.
Wow, you guys handled well under pressure.
Oh, no, startups can be very difficult at times, as you can see.
Especially if they set you up where you haven't even done a preliminary.
Exactly. You show up and the mayor's on his way to watch the pumps run.
I'm glad it all worked out. Yeah, Lord's watched over us more times than we can count, so that's a funny story.
Right.
Company's evolution and future. As the company approaches its 100-year anniversary, what do you envision for MWI Pumps in the next decade and beyond?
Well, it's hard to predict what's going to end up 100 years out, but I can see with the decision made to keep the manufacturing in the U.S. is probably a very good decision, because now with all the tariffs and everything, we're sitting pretty. I mean, we're manufacturing in the U.S., and hopefully our competition's going to get hit with tariffs, and I think there's some pretty good years coming up for MWI. Yeah.
You mentioned our competition on a few different times on submersible electrics. I believe, as far as I know, we're still the only U.S. manufacturer of submersible electric propeller pumps in the United States. We don't have any other U.S. manufacturers that build a complete product here in the U.S.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think there used to be a couple small companies which would try coupling motors onto the pump. It isn't a submersible as we build. It meets the international
standards. Yeah, it's something to be proud of. Advice for the next generation. What advice would you give to new employees joining MWI Pumps based on your extensive 39 going on 40 years of experience?
Well, first thing I would advise anybody that's starting here is participate in the 401k,
right,
and put money in the 401k. And if you consistently do that, leave it in an S&P index fund, 3 years from now, you're going to look and say, I'm rich, right? And that's probably what my situation is I was able to retire early because I had substantial money in the 401k. And then what else I would advise new people is, like in life, there's going to be tough times. Times are going to get tough. But you stick it out. You don't just bail out. I mean, you stick it out. Things are better, and that's my advice.
Like life, businesses go through seasons of ups and downs too.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Right. I guess that's why one of our core values is love. Love is commitment, not just a feeling of being committed when things are feeling good, but being committed to get through it even when you go through challenges. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah. Now that's your 401k story is a great story because we always encourage employees to participate in that. In fact, a number of years ago, based on a study I'd heard with a speaker saying that if you give employees the option where they have to opt in, statistics show that a lot of people just won't do that. But if they're opted in and they have to physically opt out, just that little change in psychology will increase more people's participation in it. And we did it, and I believe we got like almost 98% or more participation in our 401k plan. But we encourage everybody to do that because even though you've retired, you still, as a lot of people we encourage them to do, you still get a flexible schedule to come in and contribute.
Exactly, sure, yeah. I mean, I'm happy to come in my part-time schedule.
Yes. Yeah, and you get to pass on knowledge to the next generation. So, any closing thoughts? Anything else you'd like to share about your journey with MWI Pumps, people you've worked for, the impact the company's had?
Just I appreciate working here all these years. I mean, as I'm saying, it got me a lot of unique experiences. Get around the world, travel the world, and I've enjoyed the employment. I mean, it's a great place to do a career. That's my
Thank you. Yeah. We've appreciated having you here all these years. So you've contributed a lot to our company's history and our future and our past, and it's going to continue to grow because of a lot of the things you laid in that foundation. So one of the last things we're having people do is just say, happy birthday to MWI. We'll probably clip them all together eventually here. I'm not sure how we're going to use all this yet, but if you want to look into the camera and wish the company a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, MWI.
All right. Thank you, Ed.
Okay.